And we are on the air. We do have a quorum tonight, so I'm going to call to order the Londonderry Utilities Committee meeting for Wednesday, April 26, 2023, here in the Moose Hill Conference Room. And we have no members of the public attending tonight.
Not yet.
Ray Breslin is going to be showing up late. I don't believe John Ferrara is going to be here. I did not get confirmation one way or the other, but I did think that he may not be here tonight. John is our secretary, so tonight, once again, Kirby Wade will be taking the minutes for us remotely, and we thank her for that. But she will be doing that, and next month we'll start with John doing the minutes. I do want to introduce Joy Muller, the newest member of our committee. So welcome, Joy. I think it's going to be wonderful having you on the committee. Joy and I go back a number of years on the Solid Waste and Environment Committee, so I know Joy from that. Just give us a couple of sentences on who you are and what interests you have, Joy.
Sure. So, as Lynn said, my name is Joy Muller. I've lived in Londonderry close to 9 years now. I am an environmental scientist slash microbiologist slash educator. I am a high school teacher currently, and I've taught one way or the other environmental sciences for 22 years at different levels. And I'm just really interested in how I can help the town and the citizens of the town move forward with where I believe we need to go with clean energy, clean water, and clean air, clean land. So that's why I'm here.
May I ask, Joy, where are you teaching right now?
Now I'm at Timberlane.
Okay.
Yep. Yeah, in Plastow.
So welcome.
Thank you.
So Joy is coming in as an alternate member. She was just appointed by the town council on Monday night. So that leaves us with a board of 9. We have 7 voting members, 3 alternate slots. We have Ray and Joy who are alternates right now, and we have 1 more open alternate slot to be filled. So there was some discussion Monday night about that, and but just to let everybody know, we have 1 alternate spot left. Yes, Ray?
Any reason that hasn't been filled?
I don't. It's at the pleasure of the town council. We do have a town councilor on this board as a liaison member. The question might be directed to Ron, but I think right now, with the confusion that we had on Monday night, probably was best not to continue it until the confusion was taken care of.
I would just answer your question by saying that the chair was on shore, and he chose to postpone it to the next meeting.
So is there another candidate that was there?
Deb Paul had asked to be the alternate.
And there may be some other candidates too as well. We'll just make the decision. The decision will be made, I assume, at the next town council meeting, so whatever happens between now and then will happen. Good evening, Ann.
Hi, how are you?
Okay. Moving on, to public comment. We have no members of the public here tonight, so we are not going to spend any time on public comment. Next item is administrative committee work. First item here is discussions with staff. I've asked Mike to have somebody here. Pledge of Allegiance, yeah, let's do that. Let's do that right now. Thank you for reminding me. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you for the reminder. So going back to administrative committee work, so I do expect we'll have somebody from staff here at our meetings. That'll probably be a rotating person depending on the nature and content of the particular meeting. Mike will be joining us later. We're going to have a discussion on the aggregation committee status, the energy aggregation committee status that he'll be briefing us on.
Does
Yes, sir.
anybody have a spare pen? Mine just ran out of ink.
Oh,
There's,
Yeah.
there's one right
look
here.
at that, Joy.
Thank you.
Very welcome.
Yeah, more
I'm
than
gonna
one.
eat meat.
Oh, I can keep it.
I'm a big spender. Ray likes to take
Ray will
notes.
bring you one next meeting.
So at our last meeting, we had a discussion on londonderry.org email addresses. I believe everybody now has one. Joy, you don't, but you will be getting one.
Okay.
But I believe everybody has one.
Excuse me?
Did they go up? I didn't see
I don't
them
have
yet.
I don't remember seeing one.
Nope.
You should have gotten an email from Kirby.
No.
Kirby?
Really?
I went to see Kirby, and she was not there the last couple of days, so I couldn't even talk to her.
I did not get any email from Kirby.
I will check with her. But I know they've been set up, so be
Okay.
prepared for tomorrow. For those
Yeah,
of
there
us who
was a
don't have them.
general note that went out that's saying, you know, essentially, it's the londonderry.newhampshire.org.
You got something from Kirby?
I'm not sure if it was from Kirby or actually if it was from Lynn, but there was something that went out
Okay,
about.
well, we can check the website to see
Yeah.
if it's there. That's where it would be, correct?
Theoretically, yes. So it should, that's a great idea. Check the website, check the webpage and
I
see what
I
your
was told it
address
was
is.
up to Mike Malaguti to decide in regards to that. That's
They are-
what Kirby
no,
told
They are
me.
happening. No, they are happening. You will be getting a londonderrynh.org email address.
Well, he'll be here later this evening, right?
Yep, no, you are getting one, so you can ask him if you want, but we are getting them. And I had been told that they were set up.
I would
So-
suggest you ask him.
You're
You're the chair.
All right.
No, that's fine,
The
that's fine.
email addresses are all your first initial, your last name, at londonderrynh.org. So you can, right now, send yourself an email
Perfect.
to your town account from your personal account and see if you get it.
Okay.
And what do they do if you have, like, I have a very common last name. It's Smith. And so M. Smith, there may be another M. Smith on
Yeah,
the.
I'll probably have a full Martha in front of it or something.
Okay.
I don't know.
Well, I'll have to just wait and see.
I'll check with Kirby tomorrow morning.
Okay.
And make sure.
I don't even know
that
if there
email-
is an M. Smith.
Yeah.
but there
There's
might be.
there's a click-through on the website, but everyone goes to Michael Speltz, it looks like. So it needs a little, not all of them. It needs some work.
Yep.
It's in process.
Okay.
Jeez, spare me.
Mike, how come you haven't responded to those emails?
Because mine is M spells.
Mr. Chair.
And then when you do have your email address, there is a way to set it up so you can have the email delivered to your computer as
Mr.
well.
Chair, I just logged on. It looks like everybody has an email except for Ray.
Okay,
So if you have an email on the website, your name will be in blue. Ray's is still in black, so I don't think you have one yet, Ray.
yeah, so don't necessarily go
message
by
there.
that because it could have the old email, the link to your
Okay,
old email, your
but
private email
It looks
address
like
as well.
if I click on Ann's name,
Yep.
it gives me an email, to send you an email.
But if you
So
click on Jeff McGraw, it goes to Mike Speltz.
that's true, it does. I just did, look at it.
Okay. It's in process.
It's in
Okay.
process.
It's in
You
process.
trying to get even?
So Mike,
here,
you're gonna get a
Jeff?
lot of emails.
Okay. Third item, I was talking with the town manager recently about establishing a Facebook page, a committee Facebook page. I wanted to ask if there was any interest in doing that, if anybody has interest in it, if they want to administer it. But it might be a good way to communicate with the community as we go down our path.
I'll take that.
Great. I set up one for the Solid Waste and Environment Committee, Jeff, and, if you wanted to go take a look at that, you can kind of see how, another committee in town has it set up.
Sure.
And I would suggest yourself and myself being set up as administrators,
Absolutely, yeah.
with you being primary.
Yep.
But people, you get some interesting things to post once in a while, so you got to keep an eye on that. But, good. Thank you for volunteering on that.
Maybe you should just have everybody on the committee have the ability to contribute to the Facebook page.
Oh,
But
contribute,
we would have
absolutely.
to, but we would have to go through you or obviously Jeff to get it on there.
Right.
Is that right? So, okay,
Yeah, obviously, the page is for the committee.
right.
The page is not for me, or it's
And I
not for
thought
Jeff.
for the public.
It's to
also,
communicate
right?
to the public. If
Right.
there's content that the public wants to post that we feel is appropriate to the page, we'll post it. But that's going to be the administrator's responsibility to do that.
Yeah, I was just thinking it was also a way for us to get information out to the community as to what we're doing, what we're working on.
Exactly.
Yeah,
Yeah, anything that needs to go out, we'll figure it out.
Yep.
okay.
But, yeah, that's great.
I
And,
I won't be a roadblock, I'll be a open door for it.
Thank you, Jeff. Yes, we
But when
appreciate
the,
that.
the friend requests from India start coming in, you can delete those.
I'll forward those to the chairman.
About my inheritance.
And Jeff, when you have something up, why don't you just send an email to me, and I'll get it out to everybody that, with the name and how to get to it and everything like that. Great.
That's very good.
Okay. One other thing I wanted to talk about, and I didn't have it on the agenda, but I want to bring it up during our administrative work, is I starting to put together rules of procedure for the committee. You know, just judging from some of the meetings, other meetings that I've attended over the past 6 months, I think it makes sense for us to have that. And I think it's pretty straightforward. It doesn't have to be complicated, but I think it's important to just to have something in writing as to how we want to run our meetings. And,
Would we run them just using Robert's Rules of Order, or do you want it to be more
well,
informal?
if we do that, then I have to resign because I don't know Robert's Rules of Orders.
We'd have to get a book.
Well, there are plenty of books out there. Yeah, I'm sure the library,
Doesn't the city council,
that's too formal.
Yeah, it's too formal.
Okay, yeah, agree.
You know,
We need a couple of pages, not a book.
doesn't the city council have a format to use?
So the city council, or the town council has one, the planning board, I went to the planning board's rules
Yeah.
today, as I was involved in writing those, and I think we can come up with a pretty good adaptation from everybody as to how we want to run our meetings. But I
Okay.
think it's important to have that, and that way, when there are questions, we can kind of fall back on that.
Sure.
And that will be submitted to the committee for approval, or for edits number 1, and then approval, so we'll all be on board with that. So. Okay, moving on, our standing meeting day. So I sent out the request for day preferences, compared that to when the conference room is open. And it looks like from everybody that gave me a response, that we can have our meeting on the first Tuesday of the month. So I would like to have a motion from somebody, if that is acceptable, and then we can formalize the decision on that, or if there's any question, okay, make the motion.
Yeah. I'll make a motion that we hold our meetings on the first Tuesday of each month.
Second.
Any discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Against? Okay, and it passes unanimously.
Good question.
Sure.
Is there a meeting next Tuesday?
So that's, next Tuesday is 6 days away.
Right.
Tuesday,
So
Third.
I'm going to recommend our next
Third.
meeting is June 6th.
Thank you.
And if that works for everybody, that we'll call that our next meeting. But then from then on out, we'll be meeting on the first Tuesday of the month in the Moose Hill Conference Room.
Just a point of clarification, that's all.
Absolutely. Okay. Moving on to item number 5, subcommittee proposal and goals discussion. And I don't know if you got a copy of
Yeah,
a little
Yep.
block diagram that I put out on everybody's desk. So
yep.
I got to think, we had a little bit of a discussion on subcommittees last meeting, and Martha and I were talking about subcommittees and trying to come up with, I think, 4 subcommittees with 3 members on each subcommittee dealing with the major topics that we've been chartered to deal with. You know, one being energy, one being water, one being sewer and solid waste, and one being cable TV and internet.
I have a question. Do you think we should just choose, 4 seems kind of a lot to me, and I'm wondering if we should just go with 3, in case somebody wants to be on more than one subcommittee.
So.
What do you think?
So the discussion, and Martha, correct me if I misstate how our discussion went. So I'm looking at 3 people on each committee, and that way the subcommittees can have ad hoc working group meetings without getting into putting out meeting notices or having a quorum. If we have 4
I
people on a
see.
committee, we have a quorum,
Oh, I see,
and we
okay.
have to have minutes and an agenda and things
But
like
we're
that.
establishing our own rules, right? So
Well,
do we have to
No,
follow,
that's in the.
That's by
That's a
statute.
state law.
oh, the state rules? Okay.
Yeah, that's by statute. And I think, that really the way to get a lot of these jobs done that we're going to be tasked to do is with a smaller group of people. And my thought is, you have a subcommittee, I'll take energy as an example. One of the things we'll be talking about tonight is the aggregation committee and where we're at with the whole Freedom Power situation. A group of 3 people can sit down and come together, I think, with a meeting of minds, a lot easier than 10 people can do
Well,
that.
that's for sure.
And then I would expect a subcommittee to come forward with a recommendation to this committee, and then we, as the entire committee, would act on the subcommittee's recommendations.
Okay.
And I think it may be adding a layer of bureaucracy into what we're doing here, but I think it's going to be the best way to get anything done. I've been on big committees before. This is a big committee. It's going to be tough to get some things done if we're all acting as
So
independent
if you
people.
put 3 people on each committee, right, then you've got 3 committees, right? 1, 2, 3.
Well, so I have names that I thought, my suggestions, these were my suggestions, and I think they're a good fit, you know, and I wanted to go through this because we all have to be comfortable with it too.
Right, people have to decide if they want to do
Yeah,
that.
absolutely. But with the Energy Committee, I think Martha Smith, I think Paul Ramsey with his Eversource knowledge, and Mike Speltz would be perfect fits for the Energy Committee. I think for water, Jeff McGraw, Ann Fenn, and Ray Breslin are perfect fits for the Water Committee, because I've heard.
What was the second person?
Jeff McGraw.
Oh, Jeff, Ray, and who?
Jeff, Ray, and Ann.
And, okay, I'm sorry, I missed that. Thank you.
I'm sitting right here.
And just based on, you know, your short biographies, how I perceived your interest just in conversations that we've had, I think that's a good fit. For sewer and solid waste, I'm looking at myself and John Ferrara, and possibly the new alternate, whoever the third alternate ends up being. And then for cable TV and internet, once again, it'd be myself, John Ferrara, and Joy Muller. Joy, you may want to be on the Sewer and Solid Waste Committee because of your expertise, you know, with the Solid Waste Committee as it is.
Yeah, I think I would say solid
would be
waste.
more of
Sewer,
a fit.
Yeah, I think that is a
Yeah.
better fit.
Yeah, I do too.
And cable TV and internet, right now, we don't have a lot to talk about on cable TV and internet, so I'm not concerned about having 2 people assigned to that subcommittee.
I think, I want to say something about that.
Is solid waste garbage or sewage?
Generally.
Both.
Garbage, yeah.
The sewer is.
Sewer is sewer.
Yeah, so it's waste. It's waste disposal. Let's call it waste
Well, is,
disposal.
when I,
You know what you need?
No,
You just
Does
need
solid
these
waste
little
go in the
signs
dump truck?
turned like this.
or does
I
it
can't see.
go down the pipe?
So in the way,
I'm not trying to be, you know, obtuse, but,
yeah, so I'd say solid waste goes in the truck.
okay, thank you.
Yes, Ray?
You made some recommendations here, and I think for the most part, they're good. But are we going to discuss this? Or
Yeah,
are we just
absolutely.
going to go with?
Absolutely.
Okay.
So that's where I'm at, and I'd like to go through and,
Can you just go through it again?
sure.
All right.
And then we'll go through individually and get your thoughts on where we're at, okay?
Yep.
So with the Energy Committee, it would be Martha Smith, Paul Ramsey, and Mike Speltz. On water, Jeff McGraw, Ann Fenn, Ray Breslin. Sewer and solid waste would be Lynn Wiles, John Ferrara, and Joy Muller. And cable TV and internet would be Lynn Wiles, John Ferrara, and the new alternate to be named. And open this up for discussion. Going to start with Ron. Any thoughts, Ron, from your perspective?
I think you did a good job, actually. I think you put people in the right places. I like it.
Ray?
I would just like to say this, in regards to sewer and solid waste, which look like they go together, but the sewer is a very important thing that the town is dealing with. And I think that's, sewer and solid waste, I'm not sure cable and internet is something we need to really get into right away.
I-
That's my opinion.
No, I agree.
Okay? I would sooner see solid waste and sewer separated, but that's just my opinion.
So here's my thought on that. Number one is one of the specific departments in town is responsible for both of those items, for both sewer and solid waste.
True?
Right now, sewer is coming to the forefront in a number of discussions. Solid waste is kind of what it is. There's nothing happening with solid waste right now either.
And also, I'm not sure which one it is, but either the cable TV or the internet, they just signed a long-term contract
Yep.
recently.
Yep.
I'm not sure when, but I know it goes out, I think, to 25, but it's several years out. Mike, how long is it the cable or the internet?
I think you're probably referring to the cable franchise agreement.
Yeah.
And I recall a couple of years ago that was renegotiated, but I don't have the answer off the top of my head.
Okay, that's fine.
It's more like a couple of years ago than recently.
Okay. It was mentioned in passing in the
Yep.
last, okay.
And my discussion with John Ferrara, John was instrumental in getting cable TV into town way back when. And my discussions with him after our last meeting is he's interested in looking at where we're at today with, he had some ideas on where we're going to be, where he would like to see this go. So he's expressed a desire, and so there may be something for him to be working on at this point in time. We didn't get into any of the details.
So, once again, my point is this, that we have some very important things to be looking at.
Yep.
Energy, water, and as far as I'm concerned, sewer. Solid waste is also important. The internet and cable, I don't see where necessarily we need to be focusing on that, because I think for the most part, it's probably in pretty good shape, and, I mean, what are we going to suggest in that regard? I don't know. If somebody wants to look at it, fine, but I think the sewer should be separate, and I think solid waste should be in there too. I don't know, maybe other people have a different opinion.
So under each subcommittee, we're going to have various projects. I'm going to be looking to the subcommittee to establish priorities as to what they're going to be working on. And I think that would be part of what the sewer and solid waste subcommittee would be looking at as well. You know, what are the important projects that fall under that umbrella? And those are the ones that will be focused on. Honestly, I can't see where we would have a sewer number one priority conflicting with a solid waste number one priority for at least a couple of years.
No, but
Can we-
sewer and water are probably more connected than solid waste. Because sewer, sewer is essentially, we're talking water. So you may just want to put sewer under water.
I think then it becomes too big.
But they're the same topic. It's apples and apples, not apples and oranges. So, God forbid.
The lines do
we
tend
eat
to
oranges.
run together.
They run in different directions. They serve two different purposes.
So how would it be logistically if we ran a fifth subcommittee. In fact, I'm gonna actually suggest a sixth, propane and oil, but can we can double team. We've done that already, right? So I could see supporting Ray's idea of splitting out sewer and solid waste. And, you know, if we could find the people that are willing to dedicate their time, you know, to staff that subcommittee, and why not? And then they always have the ability, I guess, maybe the two subcommittee chairs would have the ability to work together to integrate those projects.
So could I just make or just ask a clarifying question? Lynn, how do you see, because we already have the Solid Waste and Environment Committee, and since you and I are both part of that already, you know, perhaps this solid waste piece is really just a small kind of subset of what we can bring, because we are already working with the Solid Waste Committee
Sure.
on that piece of it. And so then this subcommittee would focus on sewer. And I do think, although water and sewer are intimately connected, I do think it really should be broken up into two distinct pieces, because for thinking utilities wise. So I do like them broken apart, because they are both really big projects. Yeah. Yeah.
So Mike, you mentioned oil and propane,
Right.
and
Probably be under energy, though.
Yeah, that portfolio gets pretty big then, but
yeah, energy, I think electricity, there's a lot of things with electricity, and specifically, and I don't know, you know, obviously, energy is energy, right? But I think to the amount of effort required, I think spending the subcommittee's time on electricity and the issues of electricity would be better spent than having them also looking at oil and propane.
I mean, you know, they're fungible to a certain extent. You can replace propane with electricity if you use a heat pump, for example. So, I mean, we have to admit that these subcommittees are going to have to, at some point, either talk together, chairs to chairs, or we'll have to, you know, bring it to the wider forum to work those things out. But I think Ann's right. I think solid waste, and I don't follow that committee real closely, but if, you know, if they're working these problems, and if they're thinking long-term, which is, I think, what our charge ought to be, then, you know, they do kind of have it covered, and then it's more like sewer/solid waste liaison. Does that make sense? So that,
Well, you guys are both liaisons, right?
Right.
Yeah,
Since you're
we're
both
both on the
committees.
Well,
committee.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
So,
kind of have
so
it
if we, so,
organically covered.
yeah, so if we took solid waste off of that third subcommittee, I'm okay with that.
I'd just like to say something here. Have we brought forth where we were able to proceed on the Energy Task Force? Because work has been done on that. And I'm not sure everybody here is familiar with that. And I think it's important that they are familiar with that.
So Mr. Speltz is giving us a briefing on that
Say,
tonight.
oh, beautiful.
Item 8.
I see the pile of books there.
Yep. And we have copies of the presentation. You should have a copy of the presentation.
Clarifying question.
Sure.
When you formulate committees, committees are only as good as the people that are on them. That's kind of my thinking. If we decide, let's assume we should decide on this structure tonight, it's not cast in stone. If downstream
Absolutely
we
not.
felt that it made sense to go to the right or to go to the left, we have the option to modify
Absolutely.
it?
Yeah, this whole committee,
Okay.
our whole committee, as we stand here, is not cast in stone, right? This is a very dynamic organization at this point in time.
No,
We're all very dynamic people.
sitting next to you, I'm getting that. I really am getting that.
I think even though we're going to pick subcommittees, that's fine. But I think it's important that if we want to talk between subcommittees and have a discussion,
Yeah.
I think it should take place, privately, not even in the
As
meeting.
long as it's not a quorum.
Yeah,
That's-
no, how about two?
So, yeah, 2 is fine, 3 is fine.
3 is fine.
Okay, now I understand.
You know,
It's
I-
that when you get more than 3 is
No.
when you have a problem.
So you can get down this road to start with, and if it works, it works, and if it doesn't,
Right.
we'll adjust, right?
Right.
Go ahead.
And I would say that within these committees too, these subcommittees that are just sort of these broad headlines, that we will, once we get together and start talking, then we will focus on what we think is a priority. So if, for example, with propane and oil, maybe electricity is the first thing that we're really going to look on and concentrate on and see if we can come to some kind of consensus on that. And then as we go along, we get more into the other sources of energy. I mean, we're not going to be able to accomplish this all
Yeah,
like that.
yeah, right.
Right.
I was hoping.
You can always hope, Ray.
So Mike, you had mentioned 5 or 6. I thought you had mentioned another subcommittee as well.
Well, only to the extent that we split out solid waste, but
Okay.
it sounds like we've got that taken care
Yep.
So I think it would just be a 5th one on liquid fuels, basically. And part of what I'm thinking about here is, I think our agenda, or our task is broad enough to encompass not just the municipal users of utilities, but all the residents of Londonderry.
Absolutely.
So it's not just negotiating a better liquid fuels contract for the town, but is there a way that we can, thinking outside the box, do better by all the residents in the town? And for that reason, I think it might deserve its own subcommittee.
So you would put oil, propane, and like liquefied natural gas, or
Yeah.
what would you, is that what you are
Yeah, and natural
suggesting?
gas, right.
LNG, yeah.
Right.
Let's hope to God we don't have LNG. I have to tell you, I'll give you, a little congressional report on LNG. It's done a number of years ago. It's pretty dangerous. It's very, very dangerous. Yeah.
So I guess if we went down that path, do we have anybody who would be interested in being on that subcommittee at this point in time?
And which committee is this?
The
Liquid fuels.
fossil fuels,
Yes, yes.
Don't be prejudicial, we should call it liquid fuels.
liquid fuels.
But I guess if we're gonna include gas, and maybe we can't do that.
So Ray's
So-
interested, is there anybody else?
I think I'm interested in that too.
There's nothing saying you can't be on more than one.
I guess I would sign up for that one, too.
So now I'm guilty of suggesting it and not volunteering, but.
Yeah, there you go.
But I think we've got 3 volunteers. I would have been the third, but we're covered, so, I think that's good.
Well,
Thank
that's
you.
okay. Do you want to take my place? I'll sacrifice.
We'll allow
No
that.
problem.
I'm okay, my plate is full.
I think the energy subcommittee is gonna have a lot on their plate, like you say, so I think, I wouldn't worry too much about it.
Thanks.
And what happens to renewables and solar, and are we going to include that under energy? Okay.
That's my vision is having solar there. Because it feeds into
Well,
the
that's
grid.
one, right,
So it'd
one
be,
renewable.
yep,
Yeah, if it makes electricity, it's in that portfolio.
Okay,
if we want to put a wind turbine on top of my hill in my backyard,
go. There you
we
go.
could talk about that too, so.
Yeah.
Everyone install wind turbines.
We live on the top of the second tallest hill in town,
Oh,
so
there you go.
we could put one in my backyard. Okay, Jeff, any comments? Or Ray, are you also with your comments?
For the time being.
Reserve your right to come back?
Yeah.
Jeff?
I'm pleased that you put me on water. That's the one that I'm most excited about. That's, the mention that we have some concerns about water in the last meeting, which I didn't think came this far south.
Yep,
That, I can sink my teeth into that.
excellent.
I had another thought. In regards to working with the town staff, okay, I think someone, maybe yourself, should be the contact that, if we bring up a question and we want some information from the town, I don't think I necessarily want to do that, but I think it should be someone, perhaps like yourself, who could approach, because these people are busy doing their job, and we don't want to interrupt or bother them.
No,
Well, that's
and
why they're there.
Pardon?
That's why they're there.
Well, we
Sorry, Mike.
understand that,
But
but,
I mean, they are public servants, so, and we are working for the public, so it's okay that we ask them questions.
yeah, but we don't want to be running to them and say, I had a question.
Not every
You
5
know what I
minutes,
mean?
but
And also, with a committee this large, with, any one of us going, we don't know if we're giving repetition or whatever, if we're not totally.
I just think we're going to
Yeah.
get super bureaucratic, folks. I mean, if all the questions and the requests for information have to go through Lynn, I mean, we are going to be caught up in our own little bureaucracy.
And I don't see that either. And Mike, you can chime in as well. What I see, let's use the Energy Committee, Subcommittee as the discussion point, just for right now. The committee's gonna come up with a number of projects. They're gonna prioritize what they wanna work on. And let's say the first thing that the committee wants to work on is putting a solar farm over on Auburn Road. Okay? I would expect somebody from the Department of Public Works or somebody from some organization in town to have a designated person to work with that committee for answering questions. And I would expect the subcommittee would be going directly to that person that would be designated by the town.
I think that makes a lot of sense. I mean, Ann, I think your comments are well taken. I will share the experience. I have a couple of observations. One is, we are public servants. We are here to, be helpful to the public and be helpful to all of the boards and committees that have been established. I can tell you based on experience that one of the frustrations that we have had in the past is, as you pointed out, Martha, a request coming into finance and then the same request coming into the town manager's office 3 days later after the finance request was already answered. And different variations of that. And so I agree that, we probably don't need to stand on formality and route everything through Lynn. I don't know that Lynn has the bandwidth to be routing communications of 5, 6, whatever subcommittees. But I also, part of my job is to preserve our precious staff resources. And I think it's navigable. I think that the mechanism that was suggested about having a designated point person for these kinds of inquiries may assist in mitigating that concern.
And I would expect the subcommittee to manage their own communications as well. I wouldn't expect all 3 committee members to be going to,
Right.
one of the
Right.
people in town hall with asking the same
Right.
question 3 different times.
Right.
Right.
No, I mean, I think it has to do with the specificity of the particular work group. And if you have a pretty specific question to the activities that you're working on, there probably won't be any replication,
Right.
If it's a pretty general question that one of the work groups have, then maybe we should put that one through you. But it seems to me that most of them are going to be pretty specific to the work group activities.
That would be my expectation exactly.
Yeah.
And we're all adults here. We're all, I think, very capable, qualified people. Use your head. I have the expectation that we're going to act with our heads when we're going through doing our tasks.
Right, or our feet.
And we're gonna treat our, our counterparts in town hall with respect that they deserve as well. We're not gonna be just pestering them just because we have time on our hands and they don't. I mean, that's not what we're here for either. We're
Right.
here to, it's a partnership we're having with them.
Oh, yeah, and there should be serious questions.
Yep,
and-
yep, absolutely. But my expectation is the subcommittees will be managing their own communications with the points of contact that get established for each of the different projects.
Yep,
And an email has a wonderful feature called a courtesy copy. And if we make use of that, then we can prevent the example you just gave of a request going to the town manager's office and a request going to the finance office. If we just say, telling you, I'm asking this question of these guys, but just wanted to let you know I'm asking it, so we can, if you just think a little broadly and use that courtesy copy feature to tell people what's going on, so everybody knows that that's very helpful.
Yep.
So who would be the courtesy copy person?
Well, it would depend on what it was. If I was looking for electricity expenditures, I would probably send that to the finance people, but I might
Copy
copy
Mike.
Mike, or I might copy the Public Works, just to, let them know.
Okay, I get you.
Just, again, using your head as
Yep.
Yep.
Lynn suggests.
And Matt, for what it's worth, Madam Vice Chair, you were always, in your prior dealings with the Energy Committee, very respectful of our time and of trying to avoid duplicative responses. So I echo your comments, Mr. Chair, that I'm not at all concerned about it. I flag it as an issue that we've dealt with over time in the past.
And I would have an expectation of the town staff that if we get over-communicative, that you let us know as well.
Right.
Right, and we can figure out how to address that in an appropriate
Absolutely.
manner.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Good idea.
I do have to tell you that working at the federal level, you would not believe some of the questions we got or letters we got. And the people who are writing those letters or giving us telephone calls, they were not too concerned about our time. That was not a problem.
Right.
And we had to answer it.
Yes,
know?
yes. I mean, I
The
think,
lady who is communicating through her teeth with the aliens that are coming down, and she's concerned about the tree in her front yard, the aliens are gonna come down through the trees. We, honest to God, had to figure out a way to answer those
Right.
questions in a
Right.
nice way.
and it's absolutely correct. But what the federal government has that we don't is many thousands of employees,
We always wanted
Overworked
more,
as well.
Not that many.
but,
money.
Wanted more.
but it raises a good point, which is, my request, of all, boards and committees and of the public is for, some measure of patience as we work to juggle multiple competing, sometimes urgent priorities with the resources that we have.
Yeah, one of the reasons we've been established is to kind of take some of that workload off of the town staff.
Correct.
So our
Yeah.
charter is not to add to that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Sounds good.
Great. Jeff, anything else?
No, I'm excited to get it going.
Great. Mike?
Mayor, I already inserted my piece, thanks.
Martha?
No, but
Ann? Anything else?
Perfect.
Paul?
I think it's a very good starting point. If we need to adjust, we'll adjust.
Excellent. Joy?
Good.
Okay. I'll take this block diagram and formalize it tomorrow and just send it out, and so everybody has it, and we can go forward. What my expectations are, once again, of the subcommittees, they're of a size where you can have working group meetings without having to worry about putting out a meeting notice or taking minutes. I'm going to leave it to the committees to schedule meetings. When you have to have a meeting for the members, you can do it, during the day, do it on a weekend. I'll leave that up to the subcommittee, no issue there. I think we can probably have a room here during business hours.
Absolutely.
There's a couple of meeting rooms in the library that work out well as well, You really can't reserve those, but they're there, they're typically open. So, just, make use of those resources as well. But once again, and I'll detail better what I see the responsibilities of the different subcommittees, or at least how they operate. And when we start getting into the run rules for the overall committee, and then we can just take it from there as well. But I do want to talk a little bit about some of the projects we have going forward, and we'll talk about that with some of the grants when we get into the next agenda topic, or the next 3 agenda topics as well. And I think that might stimulate some ideas on where we go with some of the projects for the subcommittees. But good, I think it's going to work. I think it's the only way we can get anything done, to be blunt about it. I don't think we can get anything done if we act as a committee of 10 on every topic that comes before us.
Absolutely.
I have one question, and that is if we want to bring in speakers, say if we have expert speakers on some of the topics, then maybe we should think about doing that first, because all of us are not at the same level on a lot of these topics. And it doesn't mean we have to be completely educated to the, fullest on each one of these. But water, for example, I'm just thinking that we may want to invite certain people in to speak with water contamination issues, Mindy Messner, certain folks who have been looking at this and studying this issue for a while.
Yep.
So that we can make sure that we've got the latest information.
Absolutely. So I think, so taking that step, that thought one step further, so we have our state rep, right,
Yep.
Mr. Don, who is very involved in the whole water discussion in the town of
We've had
Londonderry.
many
Yeah.
talks about
Yes,
it.
we know Ron well.
Yes.
Yeah, so I would look to the water committee to say, who should we bring in? Who do you want to have come brief the town on where we're at today?
Yeah.
Right? And
Absolutely.
that would be a place to start. And I think having somebody come in to address the committee would be great, because we all need that education.
Okay.
And I can tell you that they're all willing to come here.
Yes.
On our last committee, we were on the energy committee, we actually had a meeting in the Sunnycrest room, and they were very willing to come here.
Yep.
They're very, very good people there, willing to help, willing to meet anybody.
Yes.
So just let me know, I'll set it up, they'll be here.
Yep.
The best evenings for them are usually Tuesdays or Wednesdays, so it works good with the meeting times,
Works good.
Okay.
so.
And now all I'll ask is if the subcommittees decide they want to bring somebody in to address the full committee, that just let me know so that we can add it to the agenda and properly notify everybody that needs to be notified. Good.
Great.
Okay. Moving on. Or I shouldn't say moving on. Everybody's all set. Okay, so moving on. Grant process and status. So since we last met, we've had a couple of grants come through the town. One is the EECSBG, the Energy Efficiency and Conservation Strategy Block Grant. It's a mouthful. And the other is the Clean Water State Revolving Fund, which is the most recent grant to come in through the town. I did send out, I believe, documentation covering the Energy Efficiency and Conservation Strategy Block Grant. And I don't know if people have had a chance to look at that or not. Justin Campo is the point in Town Hall for doing that grant, putting in the paperwork for the grant. He is putting in paperwork by the end of the week that needs to go in. It's just I don't want to say it's a pre-award document, but he's taking the first step necessary to get the whole ball rolling for that. But what I need the committee to do, or at least the water committee at this point in time, is take a look at that grant. We need to come up with some ideas on how to spend that money. It's like $77,000 in the grant. We can spend it on a variety of different topics. We can buy an electric car for Mike. We can we can come up with a strategy for how we conserve energy in town hall. I mean, there's a lot of different things we can spend it on. But I think the first thing I would like to do, and we have the time to do it, but is to have the Energy Subcommittee take a look at that grant, see how the money can be spent.
It sounds like you're bouncing between the water and the energy.
Right.
Yep.
I'm looking-
Oh, I'm sorry.
You said water first.
Yeah, you
It's
said
energy,
water.
it's energy, I'm sorry. It's energy.
Okay.
It's electricity. Energy, efficiency, and conservation.
If I remember right, one of the requirements, once we get past this initial thing that is going in this week or so, is there has to be a energy strategy master plan that is a prerequisite to us applying for the grant itself. As far as I know, we don't have one. So a fairly immediate task, I think, has to be to put one together. I know they offered a template for it on the announcement. But I just want to make sure, is Justin going to handle that too? Or are you looking to us to do that or what?
I think it depends whether you want it to be a template format or something more tailored to Londonderry. This is money that has been awarded to the town based on an allocation. And so, assuming that we walk through the required steps, it's money that the town is entitled to. There are probably good reasons to have a master plan that are not connected to this grant. It sounds like something worth doing on its own merits. And so I guess what I would say is this. I think that this group probably has more expertise than the finance director and me in pulling together a energy master plan that's tailored to Londonderry. But for purposes of receiving the grant, one option is to use the template version that they've supplied.
But you're going to still have to fill it in. Is there anything from our previous master plans that we can use to add the substance?
So we have a zoning and planning master plan, which I do not believe addresses in any, material way, energy usage or conservation. We have a water, I'm not going to call it, Mr. Breslin is intimately familiar with this document. It's not fresh, but it is a water inventory, a water survey, or a
Water
it may-
resource management
wa-
plan.
That's what it's called. To my knowledge, does not address energy. So no, I am not aware of any such master plan from an energy standpoint.
We may need to go back, because when Peter Lowett was here, and see if there's anything in those master plans we can use that's still relevant. I'm just thinking, why create if we don't need to. I mean, I know that he did look into that.
Yeah, and we have certainly
That was a
had
while ago.
energy audits. We've had, before the last energy committee, there was another energy committee that had a report. I would say that was, more tightly focused on the usage of the town government. There was an energy audit that was associated with that, but nothing that I think would qualify as a master plan.
I would suggest that we can learn a lot by talking to other towns in New Hampshire that have their own energy plan, okay? We can learn from that. We can simply call them up and say, I'd like to have a discussion about this. And I think we should take advantage of that, okay? We've got a lot to learn, and we definitely need an energy master plan. We also need an energy water plan, master plan. We need all that because they're extremely important. And we have an energy, I'm sorry, we are talking energy here, and we're getting a little off on some other things, but it does say conservation. Now, does that strictly mean conservation of electricity, or are they talking something else in regards to conservation? Do we know?
We'd have to take a look at that grant.
Yeah, I think it was, if I remember right, it's been a while since I read it, but I think it was energy writ fairly large, so it would have included fossil fuels and electricity. So I think, maybe the subcommittee should step up to the task of looking at the requirements and looking at the time available and deciding if we want to follow Ann's advice of just getting the template and filling it in as a, what we used to call a slug stopper, or, try to, I'll tell you that we could do far worse than just taking the City of Keens plan and doing a global replace with the word Londonderry in it, and we'd be 80% of the way there. But let the three members of the subcommittee come up with a strategy of how to meet this requirement, and depending on how much we think we can get done and how much time we have to do
Right.
it.
Sounds good.
Good.
I
think
may,
that's-
I may spoke out of turn because I'm working on water, but, I'm concerned with all of this, and energy is extremely important, but I'll let others handle that. But if we have questions about this, where did the money come from? There are people we can call about that. If it came from the federal government, if it came from the
Block grant,
EPA,
it came from-
or it came from the New Hampshire Department of Environmental Services, whoever it came from, there's a contact, and we
If it's a block
can.
grant, it's feds.
I'm sorry?
If it's a block grant,
Yeah.
feds do block grants.
You might be the person to call. To
But
call.
that's where they,
Yeah, you should go back to that email, Ray. It's all pretty much laid out in there.
Oh, I saw it.
Yeah.
But it seems though we still have some questions.
We'll take that on.
Perfect, perfect. The second grant that I got tied up on was this Clean Water State Revolving Fund grant. And that's the one that has just really come in, and I'll get that documentation out to the Water Committee.
okay.
Do you know what the amount was for the grant?
There is no amount. So unlike the allocation block grant that we got based on population and perhaps other factors, the Clean Water revolving fund money opens up every year, and certain municipalities are able to qualify and certain municipalities are not, based on the merits of their respective projects.
Got it. Thank you.
Yeah, they have
Do
a
you know
whole
the due
scoring
date
system.
on that?
I don't have that offhand.
It's
think
more
it's
the
com-
traditional grant application
I
process.
think it's coming up soon.
I think
Isn't
the
it,
end-
Ray?
By the way, I believe it's the energy efficiency and conservation one. It has to be in by June 1st. Okay? Now, I could be wrong on that.
Yeah.
But I believe that's the case. And that's the important thing. Some of these things you really have to move along on.
attention, right.
Otherwise, you're going to miss out on, And Justin is an extremely dedicated and good person and doing great work. But he's a busy guy, too. And that brings up a question. I understand, actually, I believe it was in talking to Justin, that the town has looked at hiring or contacting a grant writer. Now, is that true, Mike?
Yes, we have a grant writer who we consult with, who consults with us. Not an employee.
Yes.
But somebody who we pay on an as-needed basis to put in for grants.
Right, and so I think, depending on how much money we're spending on that, that we really, because when you're talking about grant writing, you've got to have a professional write it, and it has to be complete,
All of the
everything
categories, right.
has to be done properly, otherwise it just gets set aside,
Correct.
It's a good suggestion. I do express the view that the grant writer may perhaps the resources associated with funding that work are better used on something like the revolving fund that we do not have an entitlement to, as opposed to the energy block grant that essentially is already a bird in the hand. We just need to figure out what to do with it. That's my view.
I haven't seen that.
More fill in the blanks and.
Correct.
This is the one that just came in. I just got it like a day ago.
Wait, where, is this for us? Or is this for you?
So Lynn,
I'm sorry.
Lynn, on the water, the Clean Water State Revolving Fund for the water, I'm looking at the website for this, and it talks about how this funds can be used for not just water utilities, but for wastewater, pollution control, wastewater treatment, stormwater runoff mitigation, and green infrastructure, estuary protection, and water reuse. So that sounds to me like that gets outside of utilities and gets into, I'm guessing there's like a city conservation or city storm, there's other committees that would have those other buckets.
Sure.
Would you like us, or does it make sense to coordinate with those other committees within the city? Sort of discuss what they're looking for and what's important to them? Or is this?
I'm not sure it would
I
necessarily
don't know, I mean, I'm.
be on
Isn't there
those
like a
groups' radar.
conservation committee or?
There is a
Mike,
conservation committee,
Yeah.
yes.
So
I don't
that's-
know, so what I could tell you is that, the town has in the past applied for SRF money. Most recently, last year, for some of the sewer infrastructure that I talked about on Monday night before the town council. We were unsuccessful in doing that because there really has to be a strong nexus to environmental protection or public health or something that's gone wrong that needs to be rectified when we talk about this particular grant program. I can envision scenarios where the Conservation Commission could be pursuing those kinds of grants, but I think in practice, I think this may be the best body to be involved in that.
And our contact, really, if we have any questions, is the New Hampshire Department of Environmental Services.
Okay,
I mean, and they will gladly help us out.
perfect.
But Deb Paul sits on that committee,
Yes.
the water committee,
Yeah, well,
at the state level.
there are several different water committees.
Okay, but that one that they're talking about, isn't that the one?
It is, yes.
Yes.
Part of the
Is it Deb
challenge
Paul?
with the
Well,
revolving
it's-
fund is that
it's
there's
the,
a match requirement, right, Meg?
It's the drinking water and groundwater that Deb Paul is on.
Correct. So traditionally, there's I believe, 49% loan forgiveness that's associated with those funds. That was relaxed a little bit with the influx of the ARPA money. And there are scenarios where it can be all grant. But you're right, for the most part, it is grant forgiveness, is my understanding. Loan forgiveness.
So I mean, the question is, do you have to have the money to ask for the money is what I'm really trying to get at.
I think it depends on what the project is or what the proposal is.
I'll be smarter.
They have to know what the proposal is.
Yeah, we'll be smarter in a week.
Yep.
They want to know if you have applied for other monies, and they want to know if you're willing to put up some money, meaning the town is willing to put up some money. I mean, that helps it flow along. Now,
right.
if the town is willing to put some money, it's possible you can get some forgiveness on that, too.
Correct.
So, it's a process, and if we have questions, once again, the New Hampshire Department of Environmental Services are our key people.
Right.
And if we have questions, I would suggest maybe we might
Right.
want to think about having one or some of those come in. and-
Absolutely.
But we should
And clarify.
contact them to find out, because I thought the deadline for that was coming up fairly soon.
One of them is June 1st. I don't know which one it is.
Okay. Yeah, I thought it was fairly soon.
Yep.
Would Justin know what the dates are, the due dates are for these, or would he even, I have two questions. One, the due dates,
It's on
but
the
even
website.
more importantly than that, I'd sort of like to know
it's on the
what
website.
all,
Actually, I think,
a
what's
lot
out
smarter
there.
than
I think
I
Linda
mean,
has
we've
it.
got
Yeah,
two
we'll be
listed
smarter
here,
than
but we
Don't you
don't know
have that?
what grants are
Don't
out
you have
there,
that?
what's available,
Right.
what's coming down
It
the
was on-
pike.
Right.
And it would be useful
website.
for this group to know
Okay.
that.
Yeah,
And
so-
you
And
guys
it
are
gave
gonna have a
the,
better handle on it than we are.
The due date.
Oh, I don't have
I
that.
just don't want to
You don't have
talk
that?
across.
Right.
No?
Not with me, no.
I believe I do.
Excuse me, I was just asking whether or not, because these are two grant programs. But I think that we should get a handle on all programs out there that there's a possibility that we can apply for. I mean, we don't even know what the universe looks like.
Absolutely.
So it would be useful to know, either from Justin or from Mike or, somebody, to get a sense of, okay, what are the grants coming down the pike? What are the due dates for these grants? Which of these are we interested in applying for? What would be the priorities underneath some of these grants we would want to push? So, I mean, this is huge. This is a huge category, and we can spend our lives writing grant proposals or applications. So I think we need to get a handle on what's there and what
Yeah.
we want to focus on.
You're exactly right. It is not a small undertaking, and I will be perfectly honest with you that we're not staffed at the moment to sort of take a survey of what grants are available writ large. If there is a specific need or something that we've been focused on or something that we've been trying to fund but not able to fund, that's typically when we would, as a town staff, would be doing that that survey or that inventory of what grants might be out there. I'll give you an example, police body cameras. In the
Right.
past, the police department has looked at trying to fund that large expenditure, and we've tasked the grant writer with identifying opportunities. My request would, and it's, again, we're not set up, we're not staffed to just kind of monitor that on an ongoing basis and track that. Ideally, in an ideal world, sure, we would be doing that. But there's the practical concern of, could we pay the grant writer to do that for us? Yeah, I'm sure we could. Would he come back with a very good list? Yes, but it would not be free either. So my request of the committee is, yes, agreed, we should have a more comprehensive idea of what's out there, dates and deadlines, but we should identify priorities and areas of need so that we aren't spending our lives in surveying and inventorying potential grant opportunities.
Okay, but we know, say for example, in water, we know that there is going to be a ton of money. We know there's $9 billion coming down, right, under the Infrastructure Act. So I think that the town, you guys might want to really focus on this in terms of looking at, Federal Register notices or state register notice, or talking to
Right.
Ron and say, hey, Ron, what's coming down the pike? What do you know?
So on the water thing is instructive because there has been a lot of money available at the state and federal level. And Londonderry, frankly, was late to the game in, I think, mobilizing to address the PFAS issue. We had a lot of catching up to do. Certainly Merrimack, Litchfield, Bedford were potentially out ahead of us. And then, the wheels of municipal government roll slowly. And we've had two warrant articles, the most recent of which tested the public support for this work. We've also had, there were a lot of moving pieces in terms of identifying a project and then potential funding sources from there. One of the data points that we've been waiting for is this cost of service study that was authorized. Funding for that was authorized on the warrant the year before last. We don't even have the results from that yet, although we have initial results that are favorable, to determine sort of how big our water infrastructure improvements could be, or perhaps should be. Do we go into the water business? And so that was critical information that actually we got an ARPA grant for to defray the cost of the warrant article. Critical information that we needed to identify the project that we were seeking to fund. I could tell you that there's community funding projects, earmarks, for lack of a better phrase. We recently pursued one during this last cycle for that big water line extension down High Range Road. There were some eligibility requirements that we were not able to meet based on the nature of the work that we were trying to achieve through that particular program. So what I would caution against is, yes, there's always been that shiny object of there's lots of money. There's the infrastructure bill, there's ARPA, but you need a project before you can grab the money, or at least you should. And one of the things that we've been working to define is what is the project? Waiting for the results of those 2 warrant articles, waiting for some work that DES has been funding for us, the Phase 1 and Phase 2 studies for water line extensions. And I think as I briefed the public on in the last month or two, the scope of the project is coming into focus. It really is. And I think that, we're fairly close to being able to much better define the project and then put measures into place to pursue funding for the project. And as I described, what one could envision happening is, and this is getting down into the weeds, but I think this is helpful. Saint-Gobain is doing certain work to remediate PFAS in the consent decree area to the west of High Range Road. They're going to need to build out water mains to do that, and perhaps we could take advantage of that increased capacity to build out the system to the east, to take advantage of those, or to remediate those heavily contaminated areas that are not in the consent decree area, but not doing it solely at our cost. And of course, there would be grant funding hopefully available to help defray a lot of that cost. Again, there's so many moving pieces here, and one of the big moving pieces that I'm sure you're aware of is EPA is now seeking to regulate PFAS at a much lower level than the state is regulating it at.
Yeah.
And unfortunately, that is going to have the effect, DES believes, and I agree with them, of delaying the work that Saint-Gobain is doing. Because Saint-Gobain needs to now figure out, is it remediating to the limits of detection, or is it remediating to the current state standard? There's litigation, there's rulemaking that's going to play out, and so
Well, if they're smart, they'll go with the feds.
Right.
Because the state has to meet or
Correct.
exceed what the state.
correct. But
Rather
there may
than
be
to-
some daylight between, the state and the feds in terms of whether the science supports
They can provide their comments.
regulating all the way, and I
period.
think they will. So that is, that's kind of tap the brakes on this a little bit, but I can tell you that I am meeting with the commissioner next week to check in on some of these issues, to better define the scope of the project, to get the latest from them in terms of the rulemaking, how they think it's going to affect Saint-Gobain's work, because I think the next step is outreach to Saint-Gobain to try to collaborate with them on getting that water mains infrastructure in the ground sooner rather than later, so that those folks, both within and outside the consent decree, don't need to wait another minute for that work.
Yeah, there's 2 things that I think we should remember. They both have to do with us. As Mike explained, the staff doesn't really have time to do a lot of the work. That's what we're for.
That's right.
Absolutely.
So the DES website has a lot, it's a great resource for doing exactly what you're asking, Ann.
Right.
The stuff, the grants are all laid out there, but as Mike advises, you really need the project. Once you have the project, you can say, okay, what grants are gonna support
Are
my
applicable,
project?
right.
Right.
So, we need to do the work.
Yeah, we
That's
have-
the bottom line.
Yeah.
Well, and it is running parallel to what Mike's talking about. I mean, I do think we have to keep up to speed as to what you're doing and who you're talking
Oh, by all
to
means.
on this
Yeah.
issue and what the direction is, what the state's direction is. I mean, I can call folks at EPA and find, I mean, they're moving fast on this because I'm sure they want this done before, you know, we have another president or, you know, we keep the current president. But, I mean, the politics are going to affect the money and the amounts of money coming down. So right now, because we have a sympathetic ear at a variety of different levels, we should take advantage of those sympathetic ears and the amounts of money that are available, is what I'm saying.
Absolutely.
We agree. That's why we got to get going.
Ray, you had a comment?
Yeah, I think the point is here that we are here to do some of this work, okay? And we are doing it voluntarily, taking perhaps some of the burden off the town. And by the way, some of these studies have already been done, okay? In regards, and I'm talking about water here, okay? In regards to the layout of the whole town, the town, I could be wrong, I don't believe the town even paid for this because the New Hampshire Department of Environmental Services hired the engineering group to do that, okay? Now, that's all been done. It's available. But here's the point.
It's been done.
Here's the point. The town has to have their own master plan and where their thoughts are, where the pipes need to go first, okay? Now, this, in regards to St. Gobain's, yes, we need to know what's going on with that deal because I believe there's some kind of a talk about bringing a line from, through Litchfield into Londonderry and potentially to tie into Londonderry to supply water, particularly west of the decree, okay, which those folks need to be taken care of. That is the priority right now, okay? But in the big picture, to the whole town, we need to have a plan, the town needs to have a plan, and take advantage of the engineering studies that have already been done and come up with a plan.
Right.
Now, we can assist in that. We're not necessarily going to tell the town how to do this, but we can make some really good suggestions. And we can also have somebody come in from the New Hampshire Department of Environmental Services, because they're certainly willing to do that. And matter of fact, I believe the chair of the town council at one of the meetings just recently also suggested that that needs to take place. We did in a number, maybe 2 years ago, have somebody from the New Hampshire Department of Environmental Services and others come in at a town council meeting and present. And so we need to take advantage of that. And we need to do our own homework and present, so we can present it to the town council. And yes, we need to, hopefully, the town can share some information, so we're not doing things redundantly. You know what I mean?
Absolutely.
But we can work together and get some stuff done.
And kind of circling back to the subcommittee discussion, this is what I think I'm hearing, and it's kind of my thought process is we need to identify some projects. I'm looking for the subcommittees to identify some projects, prioritize them, then go off and look for the grant money if it's available to support those projects.
Right.
And I, Mr. Chair, I would just point out as well that, you know, grants, take the planning grant that we used to defray the cost of the warrant article that funded the cost of service study. You can get grants to help you identify projects and to help you study, do engineering work as well. So that may be a nice preliminary step with respect to some of these things. I also want to make it clear that I am happy to talk about water infrastructure here with the subcommittee as much as is necessary. This is something that we work on almost daily at Town Hall. It's something that is going to be with us for a while. And so I agree with Mr. Breslin's sentiments that this is something where the committee should have information about what we're doing, and we should have information about what the committee's doing.
Good. So, good discussion.
Very good.
Good discussion. I'd like to move on to the next agenda item, if that's okay.
Yep.
Mike, could you give us a briefing on where we're at with the aggregation committee status and where you see the utilities committee being able to help
Yes,
move
Mr.
that
Chairman.
project forward?
Thank you. I'm happy to address that. So this is something that grows out of a Senate bill from 2019 that changed the law in New Hampshire authorizing what's called community choice aggregation. Following the passage of that legislation, the town entered into an agreement with Freedom Energy. Freedom is working with the town on a consulting basis right now. And since 2020, there are a number of things that have taken place leading to now. And some of those things have been rulemaking at the PUC, some litigation at the PUC, some work to define how community choice aggregation will work. This is something that exists in other states but is new to New Hampshire. And it essentially allows municipalities to aggregate citizens on an opt-out basis to kind of leverage that collective buying power to theoretically achieve better energy rates for consumers. The law requires that the town form what's called an aggregation committee, which occurred in late 2022. And that aggregation committee consisted at the time of the town manager or designee, the superintendent of schools or designee, the director of public works or designee, the school district facilities director or designee, and the library director or designee. And the function of the aggregation committee under state law is to conduct public hearings and to propose to the legislative body, in this case the town council, an aggregation plan that will define and facilitate the town's entry into community choice aggregation. The aggregation committee met on January 12th of this year and received a briefing from Freedom Energy, which is collaborating with Colonial Power. Colonial does work in Massachusetts, has expertise in this area, and that is why Freedom partnered up with them. The presentation provided the following summary: that there is a new law that allows communities to come together to get a better deal on electric rates for their residents, that the power would still come from Eversource, but the billing would take place through the aggregation program. This is a community-driven effort, and as I pointed out, it includes an opt-out, so residents would automatically be opted in, but could opt out of this arrangement if they didn't want to participate. The process was discussed, as well as various concerns about messaging, concerns about service. Some people have service for their appliances through their electric company. Some of those things were discussed. Additionally, it was noted that the school district, like the town, negotiates its own supply contracts with energy companies. And so in this effort, at least, the town and the school are not ratepayers in their own right. And so the school district doesn't really have a dog in the fight, if you will. And in any event, we think that given the new committee that's been formed, that in place of the freestanding aggregation committee, the town council should designate this committee or a subcommittee thereof as the aggregation committee.
What happened to the old committee that met January 12th?
So it still exists on paper. I can tell you, like I said, the school has withdrawn from it. And so that's why I'm here tonight to suggest that at a minimum, it makes sense to reconstitute that committee in this body. There is some work to be done. There was a draft aggregation plan that was provided by Freedom to the aggregation committee. The aggregation plan is a general document that complies with the law and can be adapted by Londonderry to its own particular needs. And that, I suggest, should be looked at by this committee going forward. The process from here is that if Londonderry ultimately adopts community choice aggregation as defined by this plan and voted on by the town council, the next step would be a filing at the PUC. We're advised that that would take approximately 60 days to finalize, and that Londonderry could then enter this area. There would need to be further agreements, contracts with Freedom Energy. Right now, we have a consulting arrangement with them, and they are doing a lot of this. They have done a lot of this pre-work in terms of the rulemaking, in terms of preparing the draft aggregation plan. But ultimately, if there is going to be an offering, there will need to be a separate agreement with Freedom that defines how they are compensated, what the terms of the rate are that can be offered to Londonderry based on the timing of the energy markets.
Can we use, does the PUC have an ombuds person or an advocate?
Yes, there's a consumer advocate who I believe resides in the Department of Energy, who participates on behalf of the public in PUC cases.
Yeah,
Mr.
sometimes-
Don Crease.
Oh, is that,
Correct,
you know
yes.
that person?
And by the way,
I know that.
I've spoken to him, he would be willing to come and speak
to
here,
us.
Yeah,
okay?
that's great.
And, so these are some of the things that we should think about taking advantage of.
I've worked
Mike-
with Don on many issues in the past.
Yeah, I mean, not that necessarily he's the expert that perhaps you are. You may have a different opinion
But
in that
he
regard,
represents the
but
public
let's look at,
interest. I mean, his role is to represent the public interest before the PUC.
He represents the consumers of electricity
Right.
before the
Public
PUC.
interest, right, right.
I do want to be transparent that in April of last year, the town council received a briefing, a presentation from Community Power Coalition. This is another group that has entered this area. It is a nonprofit, and Londonderry has a standing invitation, is my understanding, to join this group as well. The council heard the presentation. The staff consulted with legal counsel and did some additional work to weigh this group against Freedom. And really what we determined was these groups do different things. They are set up differently. The Community Coalition Group is run by its members, which are the municipalities from all over the state, largely the southern part of the state, the southern half of the state. And they were simply arrived here after we were already under contract with Freedom Energy. Our agreement with Freedom Energy does allow us to leave that agreement on 6 months' notice. And that is where we are today.
How does, the-
And
oh, sorry.
are there penalties of leaving that agreement with 6 month notice, even with 6 month notice?
No.
No, so
Correct.
they don't get paid by anybody or anything.
Correct.
But
Would
we
it be
can't,
possible to get a copy of the agreement?
By all means.
Are we
Yeah.
currently paying them, Freedom, for the information they're providing to the town right now?
No.
Isn't it the case that that agreement specified a per kilowatt hour surcharge that they would be paid? I know you said that it was going to be negotiated what they would get, but I thought that was already specified.
Yeah, you're correct. So the way it reads right now is that there is a consulting fee that gets baked into the final rate, and that is 0.0015 per kilowatt hour.
0015.
Dollars.
Dollars,
Yeah.
yeah, cents or
Yeah.
dollars.
A tenth of a cent per kilowatt
Yeah.
hour.
but is that paid by us? Or is that
It-
paid by whoever we choose to go with to,
Whoever
Get
uses
power.
the electricity.
Right.
Correct.
Right,
Correct.
consumer.
Correct.
uh,
Yes.
So, you were saying that you got the staff and they considered these two alternatives, but is there a bottom line on which way that you wanted to go? You said they're different,
Right.
but
So it's difficult to project and forecast. I mean, a lot of this depends on when you are going to market to buy energy. I can't speak to the decision that was made in 2020 to go with Freedom Energy. I'm assuming that there was some analysis that took place at that time. But the fact of the matter is that we are under contract with Freedom Energy. They have done a certain quantity of work on the town's behalf. And, you know, could we potentially do better with the coalition? Yes.
Definitely.
yes.
No question.
Does it necessarily follow that we will do better with the coalition? I can't say that.
I think,
Those are the facts.
I think there's where we need to talk to those other 26 towns, or whatever it is, because they've made a decision that they thought was very good.
But nobody has been really getting it yet.
Not
That-
yet.
that's in- no,
That's true.
but this
That
week
is
it
true.
looks
But if we go to the town, if we discover that it's much cheaper, right?
Yeah.
And the payer is gonna get less and say it's even 8 cents.
Yeah,
you
but
know,
here's
why wouldn't you guys, why wouldn't the town say, oh, yeah, we like that much better than what we're getting, so we'll give them the 6-month notice and we'll go with the, you know,
So,
Yeah, but here's-
power.
so my 2 cents is, number one, you know, this has been discussed for 2 years, 3
Yes.
years, with no action taken so far.
But it
No,
could just
no,
be
hold on,
that
hold on,
nobody's
hold on, hold
focused on it.
No, hold on. So the decision I think we have to make is this something that we want to pursue?
Totally. Are you kidding? I
No,
paid my
no,
electric bill
no,
today.
Hold on, Ann, hold on. So is it something we want to pursue? Then if it's something we want to pursue, we have a contract with Freedom. Does it make sense to go with Freedom and do it now? Does it make sense to postpone?
No, you do the research
Implementing it another 6 months, because there's a 6-month waiting period before we can even talk to another company.
let me,
Well,
I'm sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt you.
Yep, so, and honestly, I look at these companies like I do used cars lots, right? They're gonna give you the sales pitch, they're gonna tell you what you wanna hear. But when you get that contract in your hand, or you get that firm proposal in your hand, that's the only time you can make a decision.
but I would just add to that is that the Community Power Coalition, even though it's a nonprofit and they have different rules and everything, I'd have to see what their rules are. They aggregate many towns, not just Londonderry. So they have a bigger pool that
Absolutely.
they're going to buy and they're going to share Freedom is just gonna go Londonderry.
Right.
No, and I think that's a valid assumption to make, but once again, I think it's an assumption that we're making right now. We don't know what those numbers are.
So can we get the results of the study and the contracts and all of that? I would like to
Yes.
be able to go through all of that.
Yes.
Right.
Find out exactly what the arrangement is.
Absolutely.
I'm curious as to why the school district
Yeah.
is off on their own, and I assume we could get information from them as what they've done.
Oh, yeah. In terms of how they source their power?
Yeah.
Yes. A lot of that information, I believe, was supplied to the Energy Committee. But yeah, I mean, they're as willing as we are to provide information.
So who do I see or talk to to get all that information?
Well,
I think we've got a contact.
we have a
Martha's
lot
got
of
contact.
information
Yeah.
from the previous energy task force that we can discuss within our.
And their business administrator, Lisa McKenney, I think would be the point of contact
Yes.
if we don't already have the information. I know that Mike's presentation does have some information about at least school versus town usage, but I also think about rates and total amounts paid. I can't recall, but I thought there was a slide to that effect.
Yeah, there is.
And I was just at the point when the energy task force came to an end of having a meeting with her and their energy people.
But I will say this, I think that certainly compared to with what people are paying for a rate now, the town, if I recall correctly, is under contract until 2026, and the rates are quite favorable, having been negotiated a number of years ago.
Is this with Freedom?
No, I can't recall who it's with, but that is not a community aggregation. It's just
I understand.
Yes.
It actually might be better for the community aggregation.
perhaps the name escapes me, but it's
If you could give me that information
Yeah.
as well, I could take a look at
Sure.
that contract.
By all
That'd be
means.
Great.
Yep.
That'd be wonderful.
Good.
There's something, wait a minute, I'm not an energy expert, but it is something important that we should realize. One of the reasons that Eversource is so high is because they only buy every 6 months.
That's correct.
And the price fluctuates a lot, okay? Now, co-op, New Hampshire Co-op, for instance, well, they can buy, and wait a minute, if I say something wrong, correct me, but they can buy on the market pretty much any month when they're looking at it and buy at the best price. Consequently, their price is somewhat lower, okay? So that brings up another question. We are currently supplied with electricity from Eversource. Most of southern New Hampshire is. But there's a large section of New Hampshire, particularly central New Hampshire, that's supplied by the New Hampshire Co-op. There are some, actually, territories in New Hampshire that don't even have any electricity. That would be up around the Connecticut lakes, right? Because there's nobody there. You know, but here's the point. If you look at a map, there may be over here in Claremont, they're getting power from, let's say, New Hampshire Co-op. I don't know who they're getting it from. And then we got another one over here in Rochester. They're getting it from Eversource. It's all over the place. Now, how does that happen? I don't know. But wait a minute. All of that electricity goes on the grid. Somebody makes that power. Eversource doesn't have any power plants. They got to buy it. They got to buy it just like everybody else.
They're buying it.
Okay?
That's right.
Unfortunately, I don't know how they allowed themselves to get in that position, but somebody made that decision. So
Call the state.
I guess what I'm getting
Call the
at,
state
could
legislature.
could we choose to buy electricity off those big wires from the New Hampshire Co-op? I don't know.
No, that's it.
I think off high level, the New Hampshire Co-op was created many, many, many decades ago.
Yeah.
Back, I forget what the dates were, but rural,
Maybe back in the 50s.
it
Who
was,
knows?
it was designed to bring electricity into the rural areas and so forth and so on. essentially, in my opinion, they're not really regulated by the Public Utilities Commission.
Right,
Right?
right.
So they're grandfathered, all right? You don't get co-ops these days necessarily. You occasionally, you do get a town that will become its own electric entity. That's occurred, and there are some towns in the state that do that. Town of Ashland, Fulton Borough, whatever. And so the thing that people don't understand is Eversource doesn't buy electricity for you anymore. Okay? It
They buy,
doesn't.
they
It
buy
doesn't
it for
buy?
themselves.
No, it doesn't.
They don't buy it.
No, it doesn't.
Oh, what
The
do
way it's structured is that when deregulation occurred, there was a provision made in the state law that says, should a customer, and myself or whatever, choose not to pick a power supplier, you choose not to do that, because you don't know how, you don't care, whatever. It goes to a process called default power. The Public Utilities Commission wrote the regulation and tells Eversource to go down the market, buy a chunk of power, which is then approved by the Public Utilities Commission,
Right.
okay? And if you don't pick a power supplier, that's where your power comes from. I specifically remember arguing with Enron when deregulation occurred, and they flew up from Texas in their jet, that I wanted that if you're gonna sell power to a customer, I want you to bill the customer directly.
They said, no way.
Why? That's a lot of administrative costs. You're billing them now. Why don't you continue to bill them?
Yeah.
And look, people heard that, extra costs, 2 sets of bills. Why would you do that? Because customer would pay more. So the logic was force all the utilities to do the billing.
Right.
And oh, by the way, do the credit and collections and take the calls and all the other things
Yeah.
that power suppliers don't have to do. And that's the way the regulation works here in New Hampshire. That's why it appears that Eversource is buying the power for you. It really is not. It is a default power pool, and you are correct. For the time being, historically, it has been purchased on a 6-month basis. Okay? Is that the most efficient way to buy power? Well, you locked in a long-term, multi-year contract. There were suggestions that maybe that's not the best way, but the intent was never to have everybody on that default power basis, was for you to go out and pick your own supplier someday. That's what deregulation was all about. To the point where Eversource was forced to sell their power plants. So they could not generate power in any way possible. So,
Interesting.
yeah, very interesting. Even to the point where these power suppliers wanted to put the meter on your house, and they would control the meter.
Oh,
That was a big discussion.
Yeah, that-
Who would control the meter? What would be the standards for that meter? What if the meter ran a little faster than it should? Whose responsibility is that? We went through all of those kinds of discussions. I had one proposal where meters would be put on homes and they would send signals to a satellite in the sky. And that would be downloaded into Houston, and that's where your bill would come from. All kinds of different ways of going about it. Ultimately, the legislature and the Public Utilities Commission said, you know, meters is where it measures. And historically, we have a very disciplined approach to making sure meters are accurate, we being Eversource with the utilities. And they stuck with that. And they told the power suppliers, no, you're not gonna put meters on there. There's a certain standard. We test these standards every day, every week, every month to make sure that they're accurate, reasonably accurate. We're gonna stick with that. So that no matter which power supplier you go to, at least you know that the amount of electricity you consume is accurate. Then all you're arguing about is the price, not the amount that you see. So it appears that Eversource continues to sell power. It has not.
Well, it is selling, it is buying power for the people who are its default customers.
But Eversource
Which
is
is like
essentially
most of
administrative.
us.
I would argue that's the Public Utilities Commission by that power, because they're the ones that set the standards to go out to bid. Eversource is just doing the administrative work. Go out to bid, get all the bids together, put it in a package, give it to Public Utilities Commission, and they have to approve the power supplier and the rates.
And most of the people on the Public Utilities Commission
Yeah.
are appointed by the governor,
He's the
right?
expert.
Well,
And
the reality of
they
life,
are mostly from the industry.
well, the reality of life is there's the staff of the Public Utilities Commission as well.
Right, right.
Okay, So
Well, that's-
they're
but
they're
they
the
don't
technical, no, but they're the technical experts that put all this
Haven't
stuff.
they been absorbed now into this state agency, the energy?
PUC,
There's another agency that got in there, you know.
interesting.
But
That's
I-
why I'm
I-
interested in getting, if I could just review all the
By all means,
contracts
yep.
and
I'm
all the
glad he's on my
presentations.
subcommittee.
It'll give me a sense of where you've been
Yep.
and where you are.
Yep.
And where it may go.
Absolutely.
And the school department obviously is doing something different, and
Um,
indeed, they may have, I
Why
don't know
don't
what
we
the
have a
status is
meeting
for power
amongst
contracts
ourselves
for the
first?
city departments or anything like that.
Well, it's an interesting, I mean, I think we potentially we happen to have a good rate right now. But it raises an interesting discussion, which is, we don't, it's just, again, I'm going to go back to something I said earlier, we don't have a purchasing agent. We don't have an energy czar. These are things that, like, some of these communities who are signed up with the coalition.
I think we do now.
I know.
Yeah,
But, you know, frankly, it's the finance director and I, with whatever time we can scrape together, and the DPW director trying to, you know, make the best decision that we can. So, long-term, I think that if, you know, the community obviously supports clean energy, the community obviously supports getting good rates on our utilities. I think it's something the community should think about investing in from a staffing standpoint as well, because you know, there's only so much time in the day, and I think you'll find that in reference to other communities of like size, the fact that we don't have a purchasing agent is pretty exceptional.
So back in 1993, the first deregulation pilot in New Hampshire, the offerings at that point were 2 and 3 cents a kilowatt hour. Today, I think Eversource's rate is 20 cents.
20.
And supposedly, this
something.
deregulation was going to save consumer money. So you
Well,
need to,
that worked out well.
wow. Now, that's then, this
For
is
them.
now, there's a lot of issues. So when we were a fully regulated entity, generated the power, we would deliver it to your door and all of that. We had a strategy in place never to have power generated based on one fuel source. Okay? The reality of life is New England right now, we're dependent on primarily 2 fuel sources, nuclear and natural gas. And the natural gas becomes a problem in the wintertime, because heating gets the priority. So, this past winter, it was relatively mild. There was a little window of opportunity where there was an abundance of natural gas that was supposed to be used for heating purposes, and it's backing up in the storage, folks. So they opened up a window and said, we'll write a contract that will use that excess gas to generate electricity. And I was able to land a 10-cent contract for a whole year. But that window of opportunity was only for 3 weeks.
Can you look for another window of opportunity?
So you're absolutely right. That this is a whole area where there's not a lot of expertise out there.
Right.
And a little knowledge
Goes a long way.
will go a long way to save. And it's one of the reasons, like, talking this way, I was asked to join this committee.
Yeah,
And
Thank you.
thank you.
Thank you.
I'm not constrained anymore because I'm not working for Eversource, where before I had, I wouldn't say constraints, but I was restricted in terms of what I could do in order to not give one power supplier an advantage over the next one and that type of thing, which is the proper protocol at that point in time. But I'm not constrained by that anymore. And yes, I've worked with Mr. Crease, I've worked with most of the staff of the Public Utilities Commission, and all of these things. So,
And with all due respect to the New Hampshire Department of Energy, the Public Utility Commission. The real experts are people like you that are in the business and actually know what it costs to make electricity, what it costs to ship electricity, what it costs to maintain the infrastructure. You are the expert, well, and people in your position. And sometimes, and I'm not finding fault with the Public Utility Commission per se, but some of them are elected? No, they're not elected.
Appointed.
They're giving a position, maybe by the governor, whatever, because they have some background and expertise, but perhaps they're not all electrical engineers either.
Well, they're usually from the industry, from my experience.
No, not
Across other
necessarily.
states.
What-
Not necessarily.
I mean,
There's a, I don't know if it's still the case, but there's a protocol by which I believe there got to be three commissioners, at least three commissioners, and one has to be an attorney, one has to be an engineer, and I forget what the third one. So
I think that's just.
And it's on a rotating
that's
basis.
that's just
That's
New
New
Hampshire. I'm
Hampshire.
not talking
Right,
federal
other
now. I'm not
states.
talking
So
federal.
let's, I'm going to kind of get back on track
Yeah,
here with
yeah.
what we're
So-
talking about. So, Paul, thank you.
If I could get all the
Excellent
information,
yeah.
I could review it, I could take a look at where we are, I
Absolutely.
could give you my opinion as to options going forward.
And I would like to task
Much
the
appreciated.
Energy Subcommittee with putting together, doing an analysis and putting together a recommendation for how we proceed with doing nothing as an option, going down with Freedom Energy as an option, or looking at community power as an option. I'd like to see what the recommendation is, see the background behind the recommendation, and then we'll present that to this committee, and then we'll present that to the town council. And, you know, this has been kicking around a long time. It's time to get it moving.
Yeah.
And just one other thing, the electricity you don't use is the best electricity. And that's about efficiency, you know.
It's like the
And
gas-
so,
Yeah.
we do need to look at that, we have looked at that, and we need to continue on that too.
Yep, absolutely. Good.
Yeah, and there's an efficiency task at pretty much all these subcommittees. We don't spell it out separately, but it's there for
Right.
each subcommittee.
Absolutely.
And would it be possible to get information about the school district?
Yeah, by all means. Yep.
Thank you. All right.
Well, I got something here for you.
I'll go through it. I mean,
I thought those were mine.
Mike? Anything else?
No, Mr. Chair, thank you.
Okay, great.
That's a lot of information, Paul.
So I'm going to move on. I want to ask the question of Mike. It's almost 9 o'clock. Mike, I had a summary, that you were going to present a summary of the Energy Efficiency Task Force findings. Do you want to do that tonight? Do you want to push it out for the next meeting?
I think I can do it in, 5 minutes and zip right through it, because a lot of it we've talked about, and a lot of it's pretty self-obvious, and you've all got the take-home package here, so you can,
Yep.
and we can, if you have questions, we can, talk about it at our next meeting. So this package you have in front of you, Energy Efficiency Task Force update, was given to the town council February 17th. I haven't touched it. This is what they saw at that time. So this is like a snapshot in time back last fall. So I'm on page 3 already, the activities to date. These books are kind of what came out of quantifying energy usage. There's stuff here on, and you'll probably have to break it out, Paul, because there's some on gas, some on oil, some on propane, et cetera. We looked at the schools report on the 60 kilowatt hour solar system there. Basically, they decided not to go with it. I think part of it was concern about the roof loading, the flat roof, snow, that sort of thing. But then I think there was just a scary upfront cost too. And then you see the list there of vendors that we did have in. So we had some background on what we've just been talking for 20 minutes about, and what we could do up at the Auburn Road landfill. And next page is just a summary of what's in these books. And I would not consider these to be extremely reliable. We went back and forth with the spreadsheets, and there are some questions that at least I have about whether they accurately reflect what's in all the detail. But it does give you a little bit of an example, and it you know, sort of lets you scope the problem, and it basically tells you that we spend a lot of money on energy, and so it's worth our while to see if we can't do better. That's what the next slide is, with the little graph. It just says, if you could avoid 4% of your energy costs, how would that do, you know, whatever investment you make, whether you buy a solar field or a parcel of, you know, electric heaters, whatever it is, this is the kind of savings that you could expect to get. And then at different rates, and the blue arrows there just say if we did it at 4%, that's what you get. If you could save 10%, you know, obviously you do a whole lot better. And the schools have implemented a program. It was a sort of a pay-as-you-go. They you know, did lights and a lot of other things, and that program, they claim, saved them $8 million over 22 years, you know, pretty good chunk of money each year. So it's sort of consistent with that slide that, you know, puts them out there at a significant percentage savings. It just shows that we did it already here in Londonderry. It can be done. And Ray stole my first bullet on the next slide, called energy efficiency. The cheapest is the electricity that you don't use. There has been a bunch of energy auditing done more on the school side than on the town side, but we think that would probably be a good place to start. You don't have to do it all at once. You can do a sort of a walkthrough, kind of low-hanging fruit, and you can follow up on the areas that you see that are soft, and then, if necessary, you know, go out and do really what the school system did, and do some contracting and bring stuff in for changes. If you get a chance, I think the previous Energy Task Force report is somewhere on the town website. It is very thorough. They were at Work Logger. They did a more thorough job than we did, but because they had more time to do it. But there's a lot of good ideas there, and one task that we could take on is looking through their report and saying, what did we do, what didn't we do, what should we do? Just take advantage of that, because it's out there. The next slide is another of the issues that we just discussed. You know, are we talking about just, and I think I kind of mentioned this earlier, providing all residents sound with advantages, or are we just talking about lowering the tax bill by doing better with our municipal infrastructure? And I think the answer to that probably is we want to talk about the whole town.
Yep.
Next slide. Again, this is what we were spending a bunch of time on before, you know, doing a power purchase agreement. We could do that with a solar farm, or owning it ourselves. The Infrastructure Act and the Inflation Reduction Act have really turned the tables on this, so that ownership and bonding, if necessary, is by far the best way to go in terms of saving money. That's summary of that slide. So fundamental choices for townwide energy. That's the discussion we just had about the Community Power Coalition, or working with Freedom Energy, or, as Mike alluded to, we hire our own energy czar and make that person pay for him or herself by saving us money. Auburn Road landfill, plenty of area there. You can put solar installation on a capped landfill. You just have to be careful in the way you do it. One of the people that visited us, went through the process on that. The biggest problem there is having access to three-phase power. In order to make it work, you really need to have more than just the town load going there. And we're gonna put the money in, $1 million to run a line into that area, then we need more people drawing on it, and potentially maybe even a little bit bigger array than what was contemplated in the presentation that we received.
Can I just ask a question? Who did you get your presentation from?
That's listed
Revision
on.
Energy? Revision Energy?
Yeah,
was
we had,
one.
well, we had Revision Energy, we had Encore
Encore.
Renewable Energy, we had Aegis Solar. Those are the three
had a few.
solar providers that we.
Did they say anything about institutional controls or ARRs for Superfund sites?
No,
Yeah.
but the, I
That would
can't
have
remember
to
which
be-
one it was, I think it was Aegis, said they have done capped landfills before. So
Yeah,
They seem fairly confident.
But each Superfund site has its own institutional controls.
Yeah, right.
And it would have to go along with what was written in the record of decision
Yep.
for that
Right,
site.
right, right.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know if they dug that deep or not.
Yeah, we didn't dig that deep.
I mean, I don't know if Aegis did when they were doing their homework either.
And maybe it would work.
And the next and last slide is called Next Steps. This is confirmed the usage data means, be a little more rigorous in the information that's in these books. As I said, take a look at the last Energy Task Force and what they recommended, meaning not the one I'm talking about, but the previous one
Previous.
back about, 8-10 years ago.
Yeah.
Get energy audits going if we think that's a good thing to do. Continue to look at solar installers and the line installer to see if we can make some sense out of exploiting the Auburn Road landfill. We missed the opportunity to get some electric buses on the first round of that grant, but I know that's a recurring thing too, and we may want to,
Do we have buses now?
not electric ones.
Do we have, you mean school buses?
Yeah.
Okay.
Right, right.
Got it, I'm with you.
And, I saw where the New York City is adding a lot of electric police cars, and I guess they really like the
Mike, aren't
acceleration.
those, aren't they a private contract? The town doesn't own the buses, right?
No, that's correct.
So,
But I think you could work, a lot of school districts in New Hampshire have gotten the buses, so there's got to be a way to do it. And I think I don't think these smaller school buses are school districts probably are running their own bus operations either. I don't know.
yeah, I'm just wondering whether it's actually going to save the town money. It's good because it's not going to be putting out diesel fumes.
Right, right.
That's a benefit right there.
Yeah, absolutely. It's not just saving gas, it's saving kids' lungs. And then the long-term energy strategy kind of ties in with an earlier discussion we had tonight about, setting something up like that. And I think depending on how much time we have to get this done, we do need to involve the staff and get their ideas on it. And then, we've already taken an action item on this last bullet, which is to come up with a technical team to evaluate how we're gonna go about choosing between doing our community energy. And that is kind of where the briefing ends, and that was where the work of the efficiency task force ended.
Thank you very much.
And I did it in maybe 7 minutes.
Thank you very much. Any questions for Mike? Okay. Just to kind of start bringing the meeting to a close for tonight, I'm going to circle back to the subcommittee discussion for a minute. I'm going to send out an email to the different committees that we talked about here, just to kind of get everybody on the same page. I'm going to throw out some of my ideas. but they're my ideas, so do with them what you like. They can go in the trash can, doesn't matter to me. But I think we've heard a couple of things tonight, some projects that I think we all want to see move forward, and certainly in the area of energy and water. And I think those are really the two primary focuses that this task force, this committee has. So I think I've heard everybody on this committee say, we got to get this project done, we got to get this project done. So now it's up
Time
to us.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's up to us to get these projects done. So, and I.
We've been given the task.
You know, I'm excited that with the group we have here, I think we can do some good things. So I'll get off my soapbox. Any final comments? I'm going to go from.
question?
Yeah.
Oh, sure.
No, go ahead.
Oh,
Start at the other end.
yep, final comments, Ron?
Yeah, just as a question for the committee, how soon do you want New Hampshire DES to be here? Do you want to be here on the June 6th meeting, or is that too soon? Because I just got to give them a little bit of heads up. They're willing to come here, just need a little notice, so. If you want it for June 6th, I just want to talk to them this week, or,
Quicker
you
is
know.
better. Yeah, quicker is better.
Sure.
Yeah.
And
I
the,
think we should do, I mean, if people can meet in May, I mean, I realize it's only, a few days away, but if we can bring in some,
Yeah.
who would you bring in?
I can't get them here that quick. And that's 6 days away. I can't get them here that quick. They have personal lives. No, I'm just saying, I know I can't, I know them. I can get them here definitely for June 6th, though.
and the,
Who are you talking about?
I can get possibly, I know definitely Amy will come here. I can probably get more. We would just have to have it be first in the meeting, just so we don't hold them,
not
you
a
know.
problem.
Because if you wanted them to ask a lot of questions, they might go to like 7 or 8 o'clock. But if you guys want it for June 6th, I can arrange that.
Let's make it happen.
Okay, done. That's all I have.
Good. Ray, any final comments?
I think I've said enough.
Wow.
Maybe
I
too
can't
much.
believe you said that.
No, I think, and after the meeting, you and I and Ray would like to talk about water.
Perfect. Mike?
I yield the balance of my time.
Martha?
I will yield as well.
Yeah?
Me too.
Process question, there was a proposal to move the aggregation committee to this committee. Is there a vote necessary?
That's a great question. So what I discerned from the discussion was no objection to that occurring. As long as that's the case, the consensus of the group, then I can take care of that, and it needs to be taken care of at the town council meeting next.
Yeah, I would assume the town council would have to delegate it to us.
Right, that's why I'm asking.
No, no,
Yeah.
great question, great question.
Right, that's
So
it.
do we need to vote on asking them to do it, or like just
Informal
say that we're
consensus
open
is
to it?
fine. Yep.
Okay.
Consensus noted.
Joy? Okay, great. So our next meeting will be June 6th. And just in terms of, just one comment, in terms of having other meetings during the course of the month, all I can say is I was shocked that we all could agree on one day. So just keep that in mind. If we try to have meetings on the off day, it's a challenge to get everybody together. So just to keep that in the back of your mind. So with that, I will take a motion to adjourn the meeting.
I'll make a motion to adjourn the meeting.
Second.
All in favor of adjourning the meeting, say aye. Aye. Opposed? Meeting's adjourned.